Hello and welcome back, and can you believe it's been a year now that UniFi has been in the world of NAS? This video is UNAS 1 year later, a series that I've been working on for shockingly 12 months, where we've been revisiting the UniFi NAS system every few months, checking on updates, what they're doing, what they're not doing, and ultimately answering the question I've seen repeatedly in the comments: is it good now? Is it all right? Can I go for this now? Now, normally, up until the last few months ago, I've been focusing on the UNAS Pro, a 7-bay 10 GBE equipped system for about $499. But of course, those that have been following this brand in and outside of NAS will know that a few months ago, they absolutely went Johnny Big Bananas and rolled out a bunch of different NAS systems, some of which are available and some of them are coming very, very soon. With an entry-level device here, a quad-core ARM system with 2.5G PoE connectivity. It's a couple of hard drives inside, ARM quad-core, 4GB of memory, $199. Alongside that, there is a 4-bay desktop model. There is a 1U 4-bay rack mount. There is the original 7-bay, and now you've got this at the top end at $799, and this is the UNAS Pro 8. It's got 8 hard drive bays, 16GB of memory, a quad-core ARM CPU, 3 10G connectors, and a couple of M.2 slots on the back for caching. Things have changed a lot over the last 12 months. So this video is broken into 3 different things: what they have added, what is still missing, and the future. When it comes to what they've added to both the software and the hardware platform, I'm going to have to take something of a scattergun approach as I highlight the main things they have added, some of which I've covered in other videos and some I haven't. Going through my list, number 1, multiple RAID configurations. You've now not just got standard 1-disk failure protection and 2-disk, you've got multiple different RAID configurations that you can scale up quite well indeed. Alongside that, improvements in things like snapshots have resulted in the system being a little bit more robust in terms of failure and rolling things back. It's still not true backup, of course, either of those measures, but the fact that they've expanded a lot more of the feature set in those two is interesting to me. Now, alongside the multiple RAID configurations, they also now allow 2 more things, and that is 1, multiple pools, something that we're heavily criticised for early doors, and definitely something to bear in mind when you're looking at a larger system like this. You can now have multiple pools, perhaps this pool with slower hard drives, this one with slower SATA SSDs, and it's great to have that flexibility. But alongside that, they've got clustered RAID pools. Now, this is not unlike, but still not quite like, having RAID pools made up of mixed drives, your Synology Hybrid RAID, your TerraMaster RAID pools there. This isn't a system to allow you to truly mix different hard drives and take advantage of all of them. But what it does do is allow you, for example, on this 8-bay, if you've got 4 4TB drives and 4 8TB drives, you can create a single storage pool area that's actually made up of multiple groupings of RAID pools all umbrellaed together there. It does allow you to at least take advantage of mixed drives, and it leverages across the two of them. It's not tiering, it's not anything like caching or anything like that, but still at the very least, they are taking an extra step towards mixed drive pools, but not truly as flexible as some of the other options in the market, of course, at least at the moment. Alongside that, I did touch on it just now, caching. A lot of the larger systems, pretty much now only the UNAS Pro and the UNAS 2-bay, don't have M.2 NVMe pools. These systems arrive with the ability to add 2 M.2 NVMe's into the rear and allow you to add both read and write caching there. We'll come back to that subject later on because the way they've implemented it isn't for everyone, with one rather niggling problem. But apart from that, it's still nice to have that option there in terms of enhanced performance. Some improvements are just enhancements and changes to what was already there, such as encrypted drives there, allowing you to create areas of encrypted storage. They've improved the resilience and the performance of those as well as integrating that into NAS to NAS backups as well. Alongside that, you've got things like the shared drive functionality there now being opened out, so an admin has a lot more control than they had in the past in terms of shared drives from other users that are underneath them there. That was something of a real issue that was missing early doors. Another thing that was in the GUI that's now finally been added, and it took way too long if you ask me, is fan control. Some of these systems, especially the more compact ones, efficient cooling on them is important, but sometimes you need the system to be very, very cool or quiet, depending on your needs on the fly. So having fan control integrated into it now manually for you, but set to auto by default, is now available. Now, alongside more cloud targets being added there to allow you to integrate off-site backups there to cloud destinations, as well as improvements in how Time Machine is being managed as well. The desktop units also have USB-C connectivity, and therefore on those systems you've now also got USB mounting and backup options as well, target to target. It's still not great. You can't add lots of other bells and whistles, other perhaps USB network adapters, and the fact that the 2 and the 4 bay in this lineup only have 2.5 gig in a single port is a little disappointing to say the least, but still USB connectivity and USB connectivity management built into the operating system drive is welcome. And really, all the other improvements and things that have happened over the last core year come down to improvements in the user experience, improvements in the graphical user interface, and optimization, resiliency improvements, and latency improvements across different file protocols on the system. So, for example, SMB has been greatly improved across the majority of these systems. Although I will say that SMB performance on the original device there could still to be tweaked just ever so slightly. When it comes to things like active domain, when it comes to system-to-system backups there, they've all seen improvements, as well as integration of NFS, although of course there are omissions that we'll talk about in the next part of the video. Ultimately, 1 year of development on this has been a mixture of when they rolled this device out in a rather arguably tepid and pretty restrained format. There have been numerous updates, numerous feature set updates there, and although there are some things missing, overall 1 year on, I'm seeing nothing here that makes me think that UniFi are not taking involving NAS in their portfolio very seriously. And I'm looking forward to seeing where they are in a year's time, because right now there's still things missing. So let's talk about the things that 1 year on from the release of the UNAS Pro that we're still either yet to see or never gonna see. Say it with me now. iSCSI. I know it's not for everyone, and I know there are users in the comments of other videos I've done around the UNAS system where they go, what the hell is iSCSI? What year is this? Why are you using iSCSI? Ultimately, iSCSI has a huge amount of appeal for raw data connection, and if you're using a system where it don't play nice intentionally with network or mapped drives over SMB, you generally find that setting up an area of storage as an iSCSI target, as an iSCSI LUN, and use an iSCSI target to connect, you can trick a lot of systems, and trick's a strong word, but you can ensure that your client operating system plays much nicer via iSCSI. There are other reasons to go for it, a lot of them to do with like raw or virtual machine utilization, or just serious containers of storage, but still, that is just something that's not been integrated yet, and I'm kind of surprised because some of the criticisms I'm going to come up with now, I can understand why they're not there or why the brand doesn't want to engage, but iSCSI for me is an open goal. Another arguably niche missing element of this is support of RAID 0. There is a demand for RAID 0, and especially when some of these systems arrive with 10 GBE across multiple ports, like the 3 ports featured on the Pro 8 here, there are some users that would quite like all of these drives or some of these drives in a RAID 0 for performance sake. They understand that there will be a lack of redundancy, but that's why they factor in off-site backups. That's why they factor in a secondary pool. Ultimately, RAID 0 omission on here, I can understand why the brand doesn't want to engage, and it would actually be relatively easy to add this feature, but then it's how much you trust your end users to not F things up. But one thing 1 year on that is still missing, weirdly missing I would argue, and it was something I thought they'd have on day one when it launched, is a client tool, a native client tool for this. Setting it up, you don't need a tool, and then you've got the encrypted kind of access point applications and services, but a native app that runs on my Windows or Mac or Android or whatever system where I don't have to interact with the storage, but I get to use my native file explorer. Something like Synology Drive, QNAP, Qsync, or many other options in the market is absent here. And for those that are moving away from Google Drive, Dropbox and more, one of the appealing factors about that was they always had a client tool that you could install so that you never had to deal with the cloud. Your files were native, you could pin, you could stream, you could, flush them from your system to recover data storage or just see shadow files there. I'm surprised we've not seen that app or something like it roll out. It definitely will be something they engage with, and presumably they wanted to double down on this hardware and the baseline services here before they scale out to client apps, but still that is something still to this day we don't have. Now, returning to M.2 NVMe's, I said I would. There's something of a slight bittersweet vibe to that to me, at least at the moment, because as mentioned, these systems arrive with M.2 NVMe bays on the rear, and the majority of them, with the exception of the UNAS Pro 7 and the UNAS Pro 2 here, or the UNAS 2, they arrive with the ability to add M.2 NVMe's for caching there. Now, as good as that sounds, we have to highlight two things for me that still rub me up the wrong way. Number one, the trays that these SSDs arrive with, you have to buy these separately. So that, I know that seems weird to put in a UNAS 1 year later video, but there's going to be users that go out their way, buy all this hardware, and then find out at the last minute that either they have to buy the pre-populated units here from UniFi, or they're going to buy the empty trays, because you can't just inject your standard M.2 NVMe into this system. You have to use these trays. So it's weird that they don't include them in the system. But the other thing that I find kind of odd is it's rolling out without the option to use these M.2s as pools. And I know that's not for everyone. The benefits of SSD caching are vast. And the benefits, you know, with a system that doesn't have to take advantage of M.2 NVMe's kicking off and getting quite warm, I completely understand. But there's still no avoiding that there are definitely going to be users that look at this system, or even the 4-bay desktop, or even the 4-bay rack mount, and go, wait, so you've given me 2 to 3 10 gig network ports, but I can't use the super fast drives for storage pools? That's going to rub some users up the wrong way, and I'm surprised that M.2 pool use isn't integrated. Maybe it's a temperature thing, maybe it's a lane distribution thing off that ARM CPU there, where the actual performance number is pretty limited there in the back end, but nonetheless, it's just a shame that the M.2s, at least at the time of recording, can't really be utilized as much as I'd like. Now, there's definitely going to be some users that one of their things that they were put off by when UNAS Pro rolled out is the lack of things like containerization, the lack of some native applications, be they for things like Tailscale and remote access without UniFi services, or they want to use things like Plex, MB Jellyfin, or whatever, and they want either a native app or the ability to run containers. Now, 1 year on, that is still not something that's available, and something I don't think the brand is ever going to engage with. They want this to be storage, and therefore, at least they're going to commit to that. And I also know there are people watching these videos that know and say regularly, this is a NAS, it is for storage. If you want to use containers, get a mini PC and run that on the top. I get it, there's an argument back and forth. But I will say, I wish these systems allowed me to install Protect. Now, Protect is the, if you're not aware, the UniFi surveillance application. When you look at some brands right now, Synology, QNAP, TerraMaster, even Ugreen are going early doors into this by integrating a surveillance platform into their NAS solution there. Yes, this is a UniFi system that can go into an existing UniFi ecosystem where you can get Protect on a UniFi Dream Machine, on one of their UNVRs. Even the router now supports it with its own little SD card slot there. But I can't install Protect on this. And given the vast amount of storage, given the vast amount of network connectivity, it's just a bit of a bummer, and it's clearly something that the brand has chosen to do to separate that product line from this. Now, I get it from a financial stance, I get it from a portfolio stance, but still, I would like to see the ability to add UniFi's surveillance software on this, because I think much like it upsells UNVR systems, I think it could really upsell their NAS solutions for their brand. And pretty much everyone else in the NAS world right now rolls out a NAS solution with surveillance product built in. So it seems like an open goal for them to upsell their NAS devices if they started integrating, or at least allowing Protect integration in certain product lines. Now, as mentioned, I've talked about the UniFi NAS solution for a while now. I did a 3, 6, and now 12-month update. But one of the things that they haven't integrated in any shape or form is ZFS. Now, I'll repeat what I've said in other videos. At this hardware level, I'm not surprised they're running on ARM architecture there. Even if they're ARM v7s or v8s, I still wouldn't say you should really run ZFS, at least at a performance threshold or a reliability threshold on this architecture yet. That said, since the last 6-month video, of course, UniFi have done some of their World Conference events, and several users highlighted, alongside an official video from UniFi, highlighted that they are going to be engaging with ZFS. They're going to be engaging with ZFS on their new ENAS system, a 16-bay rack mount solution there. We don't know much about it. We don't know what the network connectivity is on it. One would assume it will be more than this, but on top of that, we don't know about the hardware architecture internally, but they were clear to say it's going to be a ZFS system there. So although ZFS isn't currently available on the UniFi UNAS Pros or UNAS standard systems, let's not say never, never, because if they're going to integrate ZFS into the ENAS, if they somehow manage to roll out that solution on a pretty efficient architecture, they may allow for ZFS pool support on these systems. So again, never say never, but at the very least we're seeing them engage with ZFS zettabyte file system development there in the background, and it may be something these systems benefit from somewhere along the line. Talking of the future, now we're seeing this brand roll out 5 different NAS solutions in their portfolio, and people are going to be integrating these systems to a greater or lesser extent. We got to talk about expansions, because lots of NAS brands in the last 20, 25, 30 years in some cases that have been in the market, they know that very early doors when they integrate their solutions, they got to roll out expansions, because the minute you rock out a small or large system, depending on the system user, there's going to be a glass ceiling. Now, currently, there is no expansions in the UniFi UNAS portfolio. The rack mounts, they've got loads of 10 gig connectivity, but no expandability in terms of taking advantage of something like eSATA, USB, or SAS. But I've had no confirmation for the brand on this, but given the preponderance of 10 gig network connections, even this 8 times SATA, by the way, which has 3 10 gig ports, I swear to God, if you fully populated this with SSDs, and they even allowed M.2 NVMe cache on SATA SSDs, which by the way they don't, they only do it on hard drives, you would still, if you are lucky, only hit 1.2 to 1.6 gigabytes per second. That barely half saturates the level of connectivity here. So I'm going to postulate a theory, and that is, I think the brand, and we talked about this in the comments, several users, myself and them, we think they're going to integrate this device out with network connected expansions. Now, on the face of it, seems bonkers from a latency point of view, from a CPU overhead point of view, and given that the majority of other NAS brands in the market integrate things like USB connectivity, that's QNAP and TerraMaster there. Synology went down eSATA first, and now they've gone down USB connectivity. We've seen SAS expansion cards and more. Why would they not go USB? Well, nice and simple. None of these sodding devices have got USB, and the ones that do are pretty low scale. But with that much network connectivity, I don't think it's impossible to imagine them using the 10 gig NICs there for expansions. Definitely not spreading storage from this and an expansion, but things like clustering, you know, and maybe they'll go down the road of high availability, which isn't impossible on ARM, but it will be impressive to see how low they can get that switch over to be conducted there. But certainly I can totally imagine the idea of them going down the cluster route for expandability there, whether it is comparable to something like Synology Grid Station with lots of independent units where you're running with multiple brains all running with one large file cluster that can hand between them, or it's simply going to be a case of, if you want to expand this, you just buy another UNAS and make one of them a slave and one of them the primary. Ultimately what I'm saying is, although there's no expansions, I don't think they'd go to the trouble of rolling out now 5 different solutions with no clear methodology towards expandability, unless that was something that was being factored in at this hardware architecture. Again, we'll have to wait and see. There's no PCIe expandability here. Really, if you want to expand this, it's network connectivity or NOUT. And again, 3 10 gig NICs for an 8-bay rack mount seems bonkers to me, and really the only way to go. But this has been UNAS 1 year later. Has it improved? Yeah. Do I think it's worth the price tag they're commanding? Yeah. Did you not hear? $199 for this 2-bay, or $799 for a 3 10 gig 8-bay rack mount? That's unheard of at that price point. Now, do I think they're going to continue to develop? Yes. Do I think this is a flash in the pan? No. Is there work to be done? Yes. But right now, for just plain storage at the price point, this is still a fantastic range of solutions. And although we're waiting to see what exactly an ENAS looks like, I do think they are taking this seriously. What do you guys think? Have you purchased a UniFi NAS? Were you one of the people that bought the original UNAS Pro and now looking at what's just rolled out, getting buyer's remorse? Or did you hold out, get one of the bigger boys and feel good or bad about it? Let's discuss it in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed this video, or you enjoyed any of the reviews, or you've enjoyed pretty much anything here on the channel, please support us in what we do. I'm not asking you to use Ko-Fi or Patreon, but in the description are links to get hold of the devices I've talked about today on UniFi's own store. Using those links results in a small commission coming to us. So if you've enjoyed this video, and if it's helped you purchase something, and if you're going to go to that site anyway, make sure those 3 things are true, please use those links. It costs you nothing extra, but we get a commission and we keep doing what we do, and you get to support creators in the most passive, easy way possible and get the warm fuzzies. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.